Welcome to today's IAPC&M CPD and Business Building Masterclass. My name is Julie Kennedy and I am your host. We are indeed very privileged during the whole month of September to have the dynamic duo of Nicki and Tony Vee with us, all the way from Sardinia, well, most of the time, at least if I've understood well from today. Today, we have the absolutely fabulous multimillionaire, top coach, and absolutely wonderful woman, Nicki Vee, with us. Welcome, Nicki.
Thank you very much. I don't know about the multimillionaire. I think well,
it sounded
I am
good.
very I know, but I'm very about all integrity. I'm very good at spending money. I've been doing it all my life. I have some beliefs about money that if it's not enough coming in, you're not spending enough. So I'm definitely not a multimillionaire, but I feel like one.
Well, isn't that the most important then?
I feel like one.
And at least you do have money coming in, though, quite a nice amount of it, because I'm pretty good at the spending. I'm less good at the earning. I do lots of things for fun.
Well, then maybe we'll learn something today that will help it come in. And I think, there's lots of great distinctions, as David's just said, everything happens for a reason. And I believe that the people who are on here, or if you're listening to this on replay, you're here because there's something going to happen today that's going to be special for you and give you some
well, I'm sure it will be. I'm sure it will be. And I mean, I don't need to introduce you more than that. I mean, to be honest, the way I see it is you're a, let alone an amazing business person, you're also an amazing woman in your own right and role model. So not only the coaching businesses, which I believe you passed a master coach on to your son. So that also means you must have been a great role model in his life as well, but very much loved around the world by thousands of coaches, and really somebody who's really walking the talk by what I hear you say. So today's topic is the biggest mistakes corporate coaches make that will cost them thousands. So I would say, like me, make sure you have pen and paper close at hand, grab your CPD book, and let's soak up this 45-minute masterclass with Nicki. Nicki, all over to you.
Thank you. And 45 minutes. So yes. As David will know, I'm difficult to stop. But Julie, please do just butt in. I will not be offended if you think that it would be more valuable for me to just, go off to a different subject. So please, just whatever works for you. Now, I'm going to start off by telling you that this is one of my favorite coaching subjects. And the reason is that we can, as coaches who are working in corporate large organizations, we can reach people that we otherwise may not be able to reach. So, if you're listening in today and you've got a super niche in health or fitness or parenting, or like me and Tony, relationships or whatever, you will reach the audience that you reach. When you go into very large organizations, you're often able to reach people who wouldn't otherwise be buying coaching, who wouldn't otherwise be, investing in learning about themselves. And so I always found the corporate market, the organizations, large organizations, very fulfilling and rewarding, as long as certain things are met. Because I think funny enough, the first thing that's coming to mind for me is to literally be the consultant going into an organization. Because a lot of people in this who are corporate, they sort of try and take on almost like a part-time job in the organization. Somebody will go, well, like myself, you're experienced in HR, so come and be HR trainer, coach one day a week or something like that. And of course, for many coaches starting out, that can feel like a really good deal. You've got one day a week, you're going to be paid a good amount of money because it's corporate, and tick tick. The difficulty if you become too involved in the organization, as if you're working there almost, you lose the outside looking in part of what you bring to the party. So that's a funny little thing to say, but I do think there's a lot of coaches make the mistake of kind of becoming one of the team, and I think that's not helpful. But I want to share with you what I became first well known for. And that was to earn 100,000 in my first year as a corporate coach. So people go, oh, that's impressive. Yes, great. That's not the impressive thing for me. The impressive thing is I did it without a website, a brochure, an office, and even a business card. I just had me and my ability to ask questions and my ability to assist them and be worth the money that I was charging. And my little story, I always tell this same little story, so forgive me, and I'll try and do it the very fast version, is how I got my first client in corporate. And I can bring in some of the things which I'm sure and I hope you'll find useful, is that I believe, brace yourselves, that whilst nowadays we do need an online presence, that your online presence should be like a business card. Now, on that business card website, whatever it is, social media platform, LinkedIn, blah, 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 which clearly LinkedIn is the best for corporate, is you might have the kind of things you would put in a bio, like this is what you did before you became a consultant coach trainer in corporate. This is your background. So I always go, the thing to have on there is your background, which sort of underpins your credibility. And then maybe some speciality you have, maybe, but quite subtly. Why? Because again, one of the big mistakes that corporate and executive and organizational coaches and trainers make is they try and sell their speciality. And as a HR director with £1 million budget to spend when I was in European Leisure PLC, I was appalled at the quality of the people coming in trying to sell to me. Appalled. Because they come in, talk to me, who's, you know, I was an executive director of a public company. I'm on a serious salary. I've been in corporate world a long time. And they're then sitting there trying to give me advice on how I should do my job by telling me that they can train me or coach me in how to be a great leader and everything. And I used to, I don't know whether you've done anything on personality styles, but as some of you will know, I love the whole personality style thing. I am a high dominance, high influence profile disc, this one. And so because I don't have any fear of being direct, shall we say, I used to just show them the door. And at that time, I didn't even give them the time to say, would you like some feedback about why I'm showing you the door? Because I had a lot to do. I'd got 3,000 people to be responsible for. And so what I did was I just went next, next, next. And then this lady walked in and she came from a company, actually. She was an employee of a company. She wasn't self-employed in her own right, which many of them were, of course. And she came in and asked me some great questions about the issues that we were facing. And then I went, instantly, this is a person that knows what they're doing because they're asking me great questions. They're not trying to tell me what they can do for me, because telling people what you can do for them, number one, is an assumption, but number two will probably cost you the sale, because if it doesn't fit perfectly, and what's the odds of it fitting absolutely perfectly? And that it, well, look, you know, let's be honest, when we go in to have a conversion conversation, a sales conversation, you know, whether it's on Zoom or in person, we are in a situation where we're selling. And what's the old phrase? You know, telling isn't selling, asking questions is. So if what you did, if the nugget you get from today is that when you go and see somebody, you do not go to try and present what you do, in my view. Now, look, you just get in my view. I'm not saying I'm perfectly right. I'm just saying, in my view, you go and see the person because you've managed, we can come back to this, Julie, if we've got time, you've managed to get in front of them. because I'm telling you something from an HR person's, you know, I was an ops director of a very busy business and I was HR director for the group. Literally my time, I was not, you know, my secretary was something right of Attila the Hun, you know, and she used to go, why would I give you 15 minutes in Nicki Brannan's diary, as I was then before I married Tony V? And they'd have to prove that they had got something valuable. And that's why if they came in and started telling me what they could do for me, I'd show out, right? So I learned that from the other side of it. This is why I think I feel that I've got some right to talk about corporate, because I've been on the other side of it, buying, you know. And I realized that that is often because we're nervous to go in with what I call, Stephen will remember this, a blank sheet of paper, you know. So you go in a blank sheet of paper. Now, just closing a loop or two, you've probably got something on your website or social media that says that you are a experienced person, in that you've worked with other corporates. You might get some, you might have some testimonials, you might have some logos or whatever that is. But basically, that's just you setting your stall out. It's like having a really fancy business card. When you happen to get in front of someone, and you've got to appreciate that you might have to do a lot of work to get in front of someone. But the thing about corporate or large organizations is that if you can get in front of someone and be good and basically serve them in the time you've got the privilege of being in front of them, the likelihood of you getting multiple money, multiple times, multiple people to coach, multiple trainings, whatever it is you're doing, is very high, because most of the people that go in are not that good. That I speak from experience, from being on that end, but I also speak from having trained over 1,000 coaches with our plug for the IAPC&M level 4 accredited IAPC&M master coach training event, but also then went on to coach people at the advanced level, at the level 5 level, and, you know, really did make sure that people got it, that it's a privilege that you're given. That was the word you used, Julie, and it's such a great word. It's a privilege to be given the time to share with someone, and therefore you need to wait till they ask you what it is that you could do to, hear this, very important, to resolve their now issues. So hear that, because if you don't find out what their now issues are, then you don't know how to offer something. Now, in the early days, this is what I did. Literally didn't have a website, obviously, clearly didn't have a business card, didn't have anything, happened to manage to get in front of people. And I just used to ask them a series of questions. Didn't know what the fuck I was doing right back then, I promise you that. I just asked them a load of questions so that, David will be sick of hearing this, so that they had new realizations about their business, not so I could get information. This is so my philosophy on being a coach, is don't ask questions to get information for you, because it will mess with your head. You'll put it into your head, and then you'll come up with a solution, and you'll be wrong, of course, because you don't know what is going on for them, because obviously underneath all the practical issues and money and people and blah, 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 and anything we ever come across is all the real stuff that's going on underneath, which is why I like questions that get underneath things. But until you find out what those are, but you see, you serve them by finding out what their problems are. So you serve them, and then you wait for those magic words. Could you help us with that? And if you don't get the magic words, I always used to share, is you say, well, how would you like me to assist you with that? Because that's something that I've worked with other companies. And what I found is that, let me give you an example. You know, worked with a company who had similar issues, similar sector. Remind me to come back to that, similar sector, and this is the results we got. So I've said a couple of things there, similar sector and the results we've got. So biggest mistake, another big mistake, which I don't even know whether it's in my list, but I feel like it should be, is that the company is your client. You are there to resolve their problems. And I'm not saying you're not going to serve the individual at your very highest capacity of serving through coaching, mentoring. You know, if you've got a long experience like I have, you might even be doing some mentoring, some training one-on-one or in groups or whatever. You're serving the individual, but your client is the company. And, you know, so the brave coach, the ones that have been the most successful that I've come across, go in with a blank sheet of paper. They don't send brochures, they don't send things, they don't put like, I do this, I do. But I've heard one person say, I run leadership programs. You know, and half the time, and I know this is nobody listening because they wouldn't do that, is they go, I can come in and coach and train your leaders, and they've not been leaders themselves. So their credibility is shot before they start. So they're never going to sell it. It's never going to sell, you know. So your credibility has to come through by the questions you ask and the examples you give. And you can do that, obviously, nowadays and more on Zoom than in person. But I really urge you not to try and do it on paper or write it, because when you write in or send an email in or send in these wonderful fucking brochures, excuse my French, they're getting that. Here's what normally happens. Unless you've been very lucky and got to the very top decision maker, you are talking to somebody at a lower level. And at that lower level, you're talking to them and they're going, oh my God, yes, we've got this problem. Or if you haven't, even if you haven't asked them that question, what you're suggesting, you've got, you know, this and you can do this. That sounds great. Give me something to show the board. You send them the brochure and then, oh my God, you've got them trying to sell you to the board. So often that means you don't get the work. And that's because you haven't been brave enough to say to the person, can you get me in front of the board? Not because I'm trying to take your job away, but I can help you, open brackets, close brackets, look good in front of your board, because I'm going to go in and I'm going to share that together we've come up with this plan, and, you know, this is the results it's going to get. I promised you I'd come back to something. Sector. I dare say people listening are sick and tired of this word niche, right? Now, in private coaching, as Tony and I call it, in other words, coaching people in their private lives, as many, many coaches do, it's a waste of time. You trying to be all things to all people. We all know that. So, you know, the old days when people used to list, I do this and I deal with addictions and I help you with your money and I'd help you with your relationship and all that, you know, all gone now. Hopefully people will go, this is my specialty. So first point I want to make is this is very different than I'll just say it, selling to people privately. When you do, I mean, my son is obviously a genius at this because he teaches people basically how to sell themselves to the private market. And that is when all your videos, all your social media posts, all all the information, all your freebies, everything that they can get hold of you and they can get to understand you, and then you have the right to say, and here's my program, and this is what my program does. And basically that's all different than what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is you've got to make that great match. And the best way to make a match, of course, is by asking questions, but the best way to get in is by being sector specific. So all that way back in 2000, think it was 2000. Apparently I'm very bad on dates. I'm losing it, you know, anyway, whatever. I didn't know what I was doing, but I found that I could connect with people, companies who had the same problems as I had in the company I work with. So in other words, I was quite niche, and my niche was companies, because I was in nightclubs, bars, restaurants, hotels. I found that, say, train companies, other leisure companies, who else? Just anybody where their big problem was the person who was customer facing was not the board and the sales team and anything where you go B2B. My speciality was B2C. And I knew that their biggest problems, because that was my biggest problem, was that I was trying to motivate, train, recruit people to give customer service to my clients. And I didn't have access to them because they're part-time, 20 hours a week, minimum wage or whatever it was. That was my niche. So when I was talking to someone who had that problem, like my first client was a train company with 6,000 employees, I spoke the same language. So then I thought, you know, come on, this is working. So now I suggest to people that whilst of course I can work with any company or any organization at any level, but my speciality was executive board, maybe not even main board, but executive board level of large companies where their problems were because they were B2C. Do you see what I mean about niche? And if you're going to grow your corporate business, you'll get a lot of referrals from your existing clients to companies that are similar to them. But if you're really niche, tell me this, they like you, you've got experience, you're the right style for them, right? Because niche is also about style. I mean, I came from that background. I then actually went and worked for Bupa as a head of business for one of their small divisions. And people used to say to me, what's the difference? And I'd say, well, I'm now dealing with nurses, doctors, consultants, and administrators. I used to be dealing with barmen, doormen, but nightclub managers, and there is no difference. It's just human behavior. I just swear less. Right, that was the difference, right? And so what was interesting was that I realized that my style is quite good for that sector, if you like, you know. Like, for example, I got a contract with I'll come back to the word contract because I didn't use contracts, but you know what I mean. I got a client for repeated coaching with Sky Television, and I got that, you know, completely by accident. Somebody recommended me to the HR director. I went in. I am not his style. He was very corporate, blue chip company. He was like, you know, tell me why I should listen to you kind of thing. Tried to ask him some questions, blah, blah, blah. And I sat there after about 20 minutes and thought, well, look, I can either be thrown out the office or I could walk out the office with no sale. I may as well go for it. So I just said to him, you know, said his name, looked him straight in the eye and went, so it sounds like everything's perfect. So what made you ask me to come in? And shut up. STFU, shut the fuck up. And he looked at me as if to sort of say, you cheeky young woman, because I was young then, obviously. Cheeky young woman from Birmingham, what right have you got to say, ask me, you know? And he went, and he just picked his phone up and said to his secretary, cancel my appointments for the afternoon. He said, ask me that question again. And I said, it all sounds perfect. What's not perfect? I can't remember what the first question was, but anyway, asked him a different question. And he went, how long have you got? I said, as long as you like. And he said, can I trust you? I said, at the bottom of my emails, if I was corporate, confirming that, you know, from my highest integrity and confidentiality. I mean, honestly, obviously, David knows I could talk to you about this for days. Confidentiality. If you break confidentiality between the client and the employee, or the employee and the client, you know, if I ever had a client say, tell me what happened in that coaching session, I'd say, you need to find yourself another coach, because I will not violate my confidentiality. In fact, I might remind them that I told them that I will not be told what I'm going to go and coach them on. I will coach the person on what they need coaching on. And if they don't like it, they won't have me. But not that they did that, but you know what I mean? I laid my stall out. So I said to him, yes. And I coached him on his wife. He wanted to move. He wanted to get another job. It was, I mean, it was amazing. Walked out the office because he was very, well, thank you, dear, you know, and walked out the office, never heard a word. And then 6 months later, I got a phone call from his secretary. Would like you to coach this person, and this person. Never even asked me how much I charged. Just made the appointments and said, if you could just send me the invoice, how much you charge. I said, I charge by the day. I'll come back to that in a second. And I charge by the day, but if I'm going to meet somebody for the morning, I'll charge you half a day. She said, just send us an invoice at the end of the month for what you've done. Bingo. And I'll make sure you get paid. Never met him again, the HR director, and did some coaching for about 6 months with certain people. Now, I'm going to say a couple of things now. Let go of trying to get I'm going to say it, David, I apologize, a fucking contract. Because you're just trying to get it for you. And I understand you want to earn some money. You left your job and now you're a corporate coach and bloody hell, the bills need paying. But trying to get them to sign up for a long series of coaching, unless they say to you, I'd like you to coach this person for 6 months, well, then great. But don't let your fear of not having enough money make you try and get them to commit to that. Why? If somebody had put a contract in front of me as an HR director, I'd have showed them a door. I'd have gone, hold on a minute. You want me to sign? First of all, what the hell is this contract? Even if I sign it, which I won't, by the way, even if I sign it, if you're crap and the person tells me they haven't got what they wanted out of the coaching session, because I'm going to ask them, how did it go? Are you getting the outcomes you want from having this woman coach you? You're going to, I'm not going to carry on with you. And I've never said these words, but like, so what are you going to do? You're going to sue them? You're never going to get, they're going to laugh you out of, small claims court. My point is, there's no point. You just have to be good. And my hard ass thing to say here is, don't even think about going into corporate or organizational coaching unless you are good. Top drawer. And by that, I mean skilled, experienced, not just as a coach, but in the business world. Because you're going to give them any advice, by the way. Don't start giving them advice, because that's not what you're there for. But you can talk their language because you know corporate. Okay. Whereas if you don't know corporate, it's very hard to talk their language. I remember getting a client once. It was Imperial Tobacco cigarettes. They were struggling massively because they'd stopped being able to advertise and all that kind of stuff. And I went to see the HR. And in fact, the HR director was a client, a private client of mine, who had come to see me and Tony with his wife for relationship issues. And he said to me, would you ever think about helping my team and all that kind of stuff? I said, yeah, absolutely. That's my background, And I was shocked as to, I can't remember why I'm telling you about this now, but this is really relevant. I was shocked as to how little he was allowed to sign off himself. So I am still on the contract thing, because he said to me, how much do you charge? And I said, well, look, I'm £2,000 a day. And he went, oh dear, that's a problem. And I said, why? He said, because my sign-off level, he's HR director for the UK of Imperial Tobacco. His sign-off level without taking it to the next stage was £1,000. I said, okay, I'm £1,000 a day then. And he looked at me and said, well, what? I said, because look, if that's what you can sign off, you want me to solve this problem with your team. I'm coming next Tuesday. You've asked me whether I can come to one of your away days next Tuesday. I'm in. But, if we're agreeing something now, they spent 25, 30,000 with me. Every invoice was £1,000. He said to me, how much will you charge me to do ad hoc coaching with each of my HR team? I said, you're going to guess the number. It's £1,000 a month. So my point is, you need to be flexible for their needs because you've no idea how their system works. You start trying to get them to sign a contract. You start trying, they're going to go to purchasing. Then you've got to convince them, which you're never going to convince, because they don't think that you should spend money on that kind of thing anyway, because they're trying to, balance the books kind of thing. So I think you've got to be good. You need to be able to speak the language. Oh, I know why I was telling you about that now. So he comes up, he says to me, we're HR and I want you to train my HR team. I want you to coach them. I want you to train them how to coach the higher levels. I went, well, great, but that's not going to be easy, because now they're going to be coaches, but to the higher levels within your organization. But listen, I'm up for a challenge. Let's do it. And he said, yes, because we've got this level, this level, this one. And then he gave me these titles like you have never heard. They've come out of the 40s by the sound of it. And I said to him, look, I don't really need to learn your titles. I just need to know what's their level of responsibility, how many people have they got in their teams, what's their kind of level of impact on the whole business, so I can see what kind of level they're at, so I can help these coaches to see that they could go to a board member as a great coach and not even know how it works at the board level, but they can coach them. Because basically, if you're a great coach, you can coach anybody. Money. In the 90s, when I was an HR director, and my secretary, Helen, Attila the hen, we used to call her, she used to ask people how much they charged per day. Now, I have never, and I've never taught anybody else, always charge per day, right? Never charge by the hour, always charge per day. If you're going to do a program, and I do have lots to say about programs if we get time, maybe not, which is what I call, if you're a trainer and you going in and train and selling training courses, great, best of luck, all of the above. But my best thing for a company, so the company gets the results, is to add private coaching into the people you train. Well, of course, if you're training 50, 60 people, you're going to need a lot of coaches. So you're going to need to have coaches work for you and all that. But say you're coaching 12 people and it's a day's training and you're 2,000 a day or whatever you are, you literally could offer, look, the best way for them to get the most out of that day is for me to do a session with each of those 12 people beforehand and after. I'm going to make this, what's your budget for this? They tell you what the budget is. Say, but look, whatever, I'm going to have a conversation with those 12 people. I'll charge you 2 days for that, a day for the training, and then another 2 days. So you've got 5 days training. So that's a 10 grand deal. Okay. No contract, nothing on dotted line, just trust. Yeah. And the amount of clients that have come back to me and to people that I've trained and said, you see, we're so used to buying 1 day's training, but it never seems to work. It's interesting. It's educational. Some people have loved it. Some people have hated it, but it doesn't seem to solve the issue. Whereas if they have coaching one-on-one first and you get to the individual issues, it makes your training days much more valuable because you already know what's going on in these people's minds. And then you can do post coaching as well. which is sort of how I got my first client. I will close that loop in a minute. Because when I went into that first company and I spoke to her, the funny story is she'd said, oh, you know, come along at 11 o'clock or whatever it was. And she said, oh, you know, I can give you half an hour. So I'm in about 15 minutes in, she was getting on well. She's going, oh God, yes, you've asked me that great question. I didn't realize that, what our problem is and what's the cause of it and all that. And what's the impact and, you know, how are individual people coping with it and stuff. And she said, I'm really sorry, Nicki, I've got to cancel now the last 50 minutes because I've double booked myself. So I went, oh, okay, and just left thinking, I've blown it. She obviously hated me, you know, kind of thing. Anyway, she phoned me a week later and she said, I'm sorry, Nicki, that I haven't been back to you. She said, but I'm waiting for the other tender documentation to come in. Well, anybody that's been in corporate a long time knows that tender documents are normally this, well, they're PDFs now, but I helped somebody recently and they were 30 pages long. And by the way, they've already sent a 30-page thing for you to answer all these questions on. So it was always a nightmare. She'd said to me, could you just do me an email? I'd sent a paragraph saying we spoke about this problem that you'd had. My suggestion is that I spend time with each of your top people to find out what they need coaching in. And my day rate is $1,250. That was my first fee that I charged early days. And by the way, I wouldn't have charged that much had I not been told by a mentor of mine, for goodness sake, your price denotes your ability. Okay. So I thought, I've got a lot of background. I'm a fucking awesome coach. And I am going to charge $1,250. And then I remembered something that I used to get Helen, my secretary, to ask them how much they charged. And if they didn't charge $1,000 a day, I wouldn't see them. Because under $1,000 a day, people are going £500 a day to go into a company and train. Now, let me be really honest. If you were going into a not-for-profit organization, you might be going into a public sector part of corporate, which is a completely different sector. I have worked in public sector, Network Rail, NHS kind of stuff, education. I mean, how I've managed to get in with the swearing that I do, I don't know. But anyway, sometimes they've got very low budgets and then you're in choice, you know. But mostly I used to think if somebody's charging £500 a day, then they cannot be really rating themselves. Because if you say it's a 6-hour day, 3 hours in the morning, 3 hours in the night, you know, I mean, like, do you realize how cheap that is? You know, and like you've done all your training and you've had all your background in business. And so I started off at $1,250. So I just sent this email and I said $1,250 a day. I thought, oh, I've blown it, because other people would have sent in all sorts of things. And I'd got nothing. It was my first client. I hadn't got any testimonials, nothing. Anyway, she phoned me a week later. She said, we'd like to go ahead with you. I only have one question. Do you think you could do what you said in the email for £50,000? And I went, I think so. They spent $175,000 with me in just over 18 months. Because I went to see the 40 executive people. I am, as soon as I'm in, I give them all. I said, look, you know what I am a day. I'm going to go and see these 40 people. Look, can you live with 6 days? You know, so I'll see 6 people a day for an hour. I mean, it'll be bonkers, you know. And also, if they can't make it and I have to do a few extra days because of their holidays and you know what it's like in corporate, I said, don't worry, we'll agree 6 days to start us off. She said, yes. She said, yeah, invoice me, because I've been good with her. She's gone, just invoice me. I'll get it through quickly for you. Thank you. You know. And then all I did was I went back to her and I said, look, these 20 people want more coaching. The others, valuable time with me, but they weren't wanting any more. And that's okay. And I coached those 20 people for about 18 months. And I'd squeeze them in and I'd do them on the phone if they couldn't get to me and all that. And then I met Tony and we became relationship coaches, and we moved to Austria because we had a retreat in Austria. And so some of them wouldn't take anybody else but me, but some of them, I had a great friend of mine who was similar trained background to me. And so I sent her in at 1,600 a day. I was 1,600 by the end of the time. And I took 800. And she was very happy with 800 because she couldn't have got that client without me. So I'm in Austria doing relationship coaching. And I tell you that not to be trying to impress you, but to impress that this is possible. In corporate, you can put other people in, but you've got to make sure they're really good. And so that was my first client. And it's possible. I didn't have a business card. I didn't have a brochure. I didn't say, oh, I do this or I do that. I just asked them some great questions. I'll shut up now, Julie, and ask you, what else do you need?
Absolutely wonderful. I mean, I'm sort of bowled away, scribbling away like mad, and I bet the rest of them out there are taking this in. I mean, you make it sound so simple. You make it sound so down to earth. And in the end, it is. I don't know why we complicate everything with all of these, methodologies, etc. It's very simple about what you're saying there.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any questions. Let me see. Did any put any questions in the chat? I haven't been looking at that. I mean, you have just a huge wealth of advice. I mean, I'd be happy to listen to you for another 15 minutes. Absolutely no problem. I mean, if you had to really say the one thing that you would recommend to people to take it to that level is, I mean, you did. I've heard you talk about trust. I've heard you talk about authenticity. I've heard you talk about service, about it's all about the question. So it's all about them, right? Not what you can do for them. If you were, speaking to somebody nowadays setting up, what would you say?
It's going to sound like a weird answer. Intimacy. My son came to me it must be about 12 years ago, and we were at a wedding having a glass of wine or champagne or something, and he said to me, Mom, tell me something. He said, I meet lots of people who've been your clients, and he said, there's something I want to ask you. He said, they don't say they like you, they say they love you. How come? Tell me, because I get that my clients are they like me, they respect me, they like what I teach them, but I don't get that. So I said, oh, okay, then, because sometimes it's difficult to understand what you actually do.
Right.
And it's complete focus on that person's needs in that moment. So it's like coaching the HR person who gives you the clients, or going into a company and then you see the HR person, you go, how are you doing? And they go, oh, I've had a better day. Do you fancy a cup of tea together? And just coach them. So I am incapable of not coaching. I am not good at, price of fish, how's the weather, how did you travel, all that. I have no time for that. And I'm here today. I haven't seen a lot of the people. There's 500 people in the room downstairs. I haven't seen a lot of those people for 4 years. Like, I used to be their coach, and I haven't seen them for like 4 years. And I had this woman, she's a right high flying person, well-known speaker and everything. She's come up to me and she can't speak for crying. Now, again, please don't think I'm trying to be like big-headed about this. I'm not. I don't know why she's crying, but I do, because when we were having sessions, she was sharing her innermost thoughts and fears, because I don't care how high up the echelons people are, they've still got fears. They've still got innermost thoughts. And so I think you have to I use the word intimacy. I think you have to be willing to have a private, confidential, intimate relationship with everyone that you come across. Now, it's a bit like being a doctor, only you don't have to do 6 years training and all that kind of stuff. they say don't non-transference and don't get emotionally involved. I'm saying the opposite. Get emotionally involved. Cry with them. Hold on a minute. Not when they're crying out of pain. Don't reinforce that shit. Cry with them when they have the breakthrough from the pain. Be emotional. Be present with them. And that doesn't matter whether it's the CEO or some junior person who they've decided is an up and coming, talent scouted somebody and everything. I think the privilege of being a coach is that you never know who you're touching. You never know the ripple effect. But if you imagine the ripple effect and you imagine that you could be talking to somebody and it's going to have an impact on their children, it's going to impact their health. I mean, I could bore you with stories about, like, I was coaching a guy, he's on 180 grand a year or whatever, he's top bloke in Network Rail. And like, I've coached him every single month for months and months. I'm happy. I get a cab, I go in, I coach him, I leave, sit at his desk. And I got there one day and I said, do you fancy going out for a walk down the river? We're on the Thames, right? And he went, well, I can't. And he put his hand in the drawer and he went, because I've got my sandwich. I said, how about you go, fuck it, let's just throw it away. He opened the bin and he went, pop. And I said, like, who's taught you that you've got to eat your sandwich? He went, my mother. Don't let's start talking about my mother. And I went, well, maybe we need to talk about your mother. As my son says, if it's not one thing, it's your mother, right? and literally, we walked along the Thames, and he starts talking a little bit, and then he starts going, no, but Nicki, I don't need you to help me. I want, I'm trying to get promotion and everything. I said, look, tell me something. What is going to happen in the future? One of my favorite questions. What is going to happen in the future if you don't get some of the patterns that we know you're running handled? He said, I am going to die early, like, I never saw this coming. I'm going to die early like my father did. And my children will have to be round the grave like I was round my father's grave.
Wow.
Time to shut the fuck up. And I went, yeah.
Wow.
Pause, wait. And if you're thinking that's a long time, wait. For me, feels like about a half an hour, right? So what you're deciding inside of yourself right now. I'm going to get healthy. I'm going to go back to the gym. I'm going to ring my wife now and tell her how much I love her. I'm going to talk to my kids. You have no clue, if you are brave enough to ask the tough question, what you can do. And now I'm talking about all coaching, of course.
Right.
But specifically corporate, because people have got a preconceived idea of corporate that the company are going to tell you I don't even call it coaching, train them in what to do, or you're going to be told you need to deal with this person because they're poor performance. You need to deal with this person because they are blah, 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 or we're trying to do blah, blah. And I go, great. But the way that I coach is going to be, I'm going to coach that person on what they're doing that's giving them this experience.
Right.
And I am absolutely certain about that. So you have to have an intimate relationship with them. That means they are going to go. I have one client, she came to me mortified. She got 3 corporate clients, all spending a lot of money with her. She said, I've lost my biggest client. Nicki, I'm all over the place. I can't, it's going to cost me, I don't know, 60, 70,000 a year or something. I said, great. I said, tell me something on a scale of 0 to 10, 0, no contact at all, and 10, contact, consistent contact. How much contact did you have with the person who give you the work? She said, hardly any. I've been too busy because they gave me loads of work and I've got all these clients. I said, look, they've had a takeover. She's gone or he's gone to talk about, the fact that he's lost his budget or whatever that is. I said, if you'd had contact with that person, you would have known that person was frightened about what's going to happen with that. You'd have coached them on what's going to happen with that takeover. Yeah. And then if they're going to keep one person on, if they've got all their budget lost, if they're going to keep one person, who's it going to be? She went, shit. I wish I'd have spoken to you before. I said, well, I did tell you about this. You might want to listen. But anyway, intimacy.
That's a great one. That is a great one, because it's the human connection, right? For everything. I mean, whether corporate or not, we're still humans and we're still running patterns, etc. Look, I shall pass over rapidly. We've only got 5 minutes left, but I see David must have a very sore arm by having his hand up in the air for so long. David.
Oh, sorry. I was just looking to see whether there was anything.
No. So like no apology necessary. I just there's so much that you've said there that I can sort of like look back and tick off and go, yeah, did that wrong. Yeah, did that wrong. Yeah, did that wrong. So that's been incredibly valuable.
Come on, David, don't be hard on yourself.
No. Genuinely, I remember not going into detail, but I remember specifically going into one right at the outset. When you don't know these things, and just going in and thinking, right, one person's told me they need this, so that's what I'm going to go in with. And not asking the true question. So learn by experience.
I was just having a look, because your lovely Ria asked me to write what people are going to learn. I think the point that I'd love to make is the brave coach, and I keep saying that word because I think it will remind you, when you've got the work, be brave enough to go back. In fact, schedule it. I normally, what I was saying about, say somebody asked me to train something, and then I go, well, I would recommend I have private time with them before and after. And then I'll schedule in, all inclusive, a feedback process for me to see the person who's given me the work after the first lot of coaching, before the training, after the training. And my question is, what are you hearing? What are they telling you? Because I want to know who I can improve with, who's doing well, who's not doing well, because all sorts of things are happening. And of course, you cannot take it personally. You're just got to do the best you can. If somebody goes, oh, well, so-and-so doesn't want to have coaching anymore because blah, blah, blah. My choice is to go, that's okay. My reframe for it, so that I don't get into any kind of bad state it is about it. Maybe I touched a button that they didn't want touching, because sometimes we don't realize how much we do impact people, and some people are not ready to take that. They want, especially when it's through company, for their employee, through their employer. They're going, yeah, come on, coach me on my job. And then all of a sudden you go a bit deeper and they go, I'm not up for that. And you just got to respect that.
Okay, so the question...
Stephen, you look like you've heard enough.
The question I was coming to, and it goes back to the sort of like the pricing aspect. For those coaches sort of like who haven't come across it, or sort of like, or who might, where you've got your day rate, but an organization just wants you to coach you like one person, and they ask that the inevitable question of how much is it per session, and I know we've talked about that in a number of other things.
I get
how do you get around that?
Half a day. So I go, look, here's the thing. I don't work in hours, and I'll tell you why, because I don't know what's going to come up. I don't know. I could go and see somebody. So I don't want to be in a situation where I'm doing 10 till 11 o'clock and then at 11 o'clock I've got to stop, because who knows what's going to happen, what you might do. I mean, I have got a lot of tools in my toolbox. Not everybody's got that many tools. They're not as old as I am, but I've got a lot of tools. I can do forgiveness processes. I can do, using props. I can use all sorts of things that I might do with visualizations or whatever I might do with them. I don't want to be against the clock. So I've always worked with half a day. I'll be honest, when I first went into Southwest Trains, I said I'll do 3 a day, right? So that was 6 hours, and so you could argue it was 12.50. So you can do the maths, but I didn't give them the option to charge by the session. I'd say, look, if I come in for a day, I'll see 2 or 3 people, because when I'm with the person, I will be telling them, this is another thing, once, this is where you've got to find a way of connecting with the person you're going to coach, to say, look, the company is very generously, giving you me as a coach. That might not be good news for you, but here's the way I work. I'm with you. Everything's confidential, and so I'm asking you to please put a morning or an afternoon aside, because I'm going to do that. Now, if we get done in like an hour and a half or 2 hours, I've just got a break, which I don't necessarily need a break, but some newer coaches might need a break between clients. So I always say to the company, look, I will charge you, at half a day at a time. That's my minimum. And then you've just got your day rate. And then if you do anything else, you can get some flexibility. But you see, that's why I don't, I have a day rate that I stick to. The reason why you're best to stick to a day rate is most successful corporate coaches do not discount for multiples. And I'll tell you why. The likelihood of you having to wait for your money is high. So you're going to deliver, you're going to go against everything you've been taught as if you've been trained as a personal coach, where don't work before you get paid, right? I don't agree with free stuff and all that, but I definitely would have a sales call with somebody and then book them in, but I don't start until I've been paid as a private coach. But with corporate, I ask the question, how does your invoicing work? And they'll normally say, well, if you invoice today, you're going to be in the 30-day or the 60-day pay run. I've never not got paid, ever. And neither am aware of any of my clients, hundreds of people that I've coached at a high level, ever not got paid. But of course, you need to agree with the person how you're going to charge. You don't want to give them a shock. If they're saying, I want you to coach this one person and I want you to do 6 sessions, go, great. Well, that's 3 days. Now, do you want me to invoice you for sometimes they go, God, when I was in business, I would have freaked out if I'd have heard this. I've got only 3 weeks to spend all my budget. So can you invoice me today? And I'm like, what? You do not have to spend all your budget. But anyway, they might do that. They might like to get it paid up front. Fine. I'm never going to argue. Give me the money. You can throw as much money at me as you like. But if they want you to spread it out, spread it out.
Nicki, David's also asking, he's got a little addition there. Sort of, he's saying, and in the world of virtual, not on site, what would you do? Same. Okay.
Same. So I have actually coached a corporate recently, and I did. He wanted me to coach 6 people, but just once. He wanted me to just do it because I do DISC personality styles, and it was like that. He said, I want you to do a private session with each one, and I said, yeah, great. And then he said, my budget's kind of that's a bit strong. So I said, well, look, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do a session with each one. But I will first of all do a group session with all of them to give them the background on personality styles, etc. And then I'll do, I said to him, look, I never turn the clock on. So, I'm absolutely hopeless at timekeeping. So I probably did do that for free. But does it matter? It doesn't matter to me, you see.
It's all about
once somebody's paid. Once somebody's paid, it doesn't matter to me what they've paid. I'm theirs.
Right. Well, Nicki, I'm afraid I am in charge of the time. I could listen to you speak for days on end, I can tell.
Going.
Yeah, well, I would love you to keep going. but we do have a schedule that we need to keep to. Nicki, I really can't say thank you enough. I mean, I really very seriously mean that. There is an awful lot of wisdom in there. I'm very glad myself, and I hope very many of the listeners actually wrote stuff down, because there's so much. And I'm really looking forward to, after this call, to sit down and literally go over it, and also to really make it mine. But I know some bits of it I'm never going to forget again. So thank you very much for sharing all of that with us today. Writing your CPD books for you, CDP books for you, those out there, straight away before you forget. Thank you for joining us today. We're always delighted to hear other suggestions you might have about masterclasses that you would be interested in us holding. Nicki, thank you very much. I wish you a safe return to Sardinia and the lovely holiday still with Tony. Yes. Thank you very much.
And I have got a very, very old PowerPoint record with me recording over for corporate coaches, which I'd be very happy to send people. I mean, a lot of what I've said, I'm sure, but I'm very happy to send people. So if you, I mean, you could literally just email me and I'll send it people individually.
We shall for sure, for those who weren't listening. Yeah.
Yeah. So would you prefer them to email you and then you email me? I mean, I don't mind giving my email out if you want me to.
No, but or otherwise we coordinate it. If you send it to Dawn, then we'll make sure that those.
Oh, I'll send it you.
Yeah,
lovely.
Exactly.
So if anybody's listening to this and they want to get, it's about 40 minutes long or something. It's just a presentation I did about corporate, and there might be just some other distinctions in there which will help you go from wherever you are in your business to wherever you want to be, and sharing the love, as my husband calls it.
Sharing the love. Exciting.
Sharing the love.
I certainly feel really keen on getting out there and doing more again. Thank you very much, Nicki. Thank you to all of you for being with us, and speak to you again.
Bye.
Excellent. Thank you.
Bye. 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 Stephen. Bye, Terry.